What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the NBA Hardwood Show, talking Wednesday, November 15th, 8-game NBA slate. Running it back from yesterday with the same crew on DraftCheat, of course, joined today, as usual, by AP and Mangone here on the early Run Pure Sports Show. Throw it to you first, AP. How you doing on this Wednesday afternoon? How did yesterday go? And what are your thoughts overall on this slate as we get started here?
Yeah, I mean, it was a break-even day, I think, to the dollar. And I don't know about you guys, but I kind of count those as wins, when you don't get fully scooped. So it was fine, as we were just talking, Robert Covington chalk, not fun. And then, Tyrese Maxey, I was extremely high on him, basically had him in all my main builds. And look, we finally got a floor game, and his floor – 40 points. Like, he was struggling yesterday, absolutely struggled. He still got us 40 points. He did not bury me at all. But, again, the opportunity was there, and I would have gone right back to it. So we got a fun slate tonight. Excited to break it down with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. 8 games to talk about. We saw yesterday Mangone, the Robert Covington chalk. I think he was the second most popular player on the slate. I think Bogdanovic edged him out just barely, I believe, but that turned out to be a chalk bomb. We've talked about it a lot on this show. Like, if you've been playing DFS NBA for a long time, you remember back in the days, there used to be like multiple stone 3K guys. Seemed like every slate, certainly I think yesterday was a 10-game slate that you could play. No longer the case. The pricing is tighter, both on, I think, the stars and especially the cheap guys. So you do, even if you kind of recognize maybe that it's bad chalk, it's sometimes hard to avoid those, 3.5K guys that are in the starting lineup that look like they've got a chance to get there, even if you think they're going to be overowned. That was the case for me with Covington yesterday. I still ended up playing him on my main lineup just because I needed him to fit, the Joker. I wanted to play Wemby. Obviously, that didn't work out. I know you had a good main lineup outside of Mr. Covington. But how'd your Tuesday go, and what do you think of this slate tonight?
Yeah, I didn't do too bad yesterday, so I'll take it. And I agree with AP. When you're on like an absolute streak, right, and you happen to just break even, you're like, well, the streak continues, right? And then when you're losing, you're like, well, I mean, that's better than losing, so we'll take it. So I'm with you. When the break even happens, it's not the end of the world. And we live to fight another day, and we'll be back at it today, talking about this slate. Yesterday was definitely an interesting one, and this one, I mean, who knows what's going to happen with this slate, right? We have so much like up in the air injury news that we are waiting on. I mean, things could change throughout the show. We could be like, oh, this is the best value. And then like 15 minutes later, another one could change. So this slate could be all over the place. I'm excited to break it all down with you guys. And, I enjoy when it's not like free 3K guys just everywhere. So I don't know. Yes, the Robert Covington, dud wasn't fun, but I'd rather that than just walking into a slate and being like, okay, I have to play these 4 guys, it feels like. So here's like the 4v4s and 3v3s. So that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, the cheap 3K guy you needed yesterday was the Spurs guy, Champagne, right, who kind of came out of nowhere late into the slate. I was personally kind of skeptical about that play as well, but he turned out to be the big smash value play that you kind of needed to get to the top. And yeah, I mean, if we're talking tournaments, GPPs, which the vast majority of people watching the show and people in general are playing, you're going to lose more days than you win, just given the top-heavy nature of those tournaments. So a break-even day, not too bad in the DFS GPP streets. But with that, we do have 8 games to talk about. As always, we will go by the DraftKings order of games. There is just one game starting at 7 Eastern time. First lock of the slate, of course, Dallas and Washington. And we have right here in the first game of the night, AP, maybe the biggest piece of injury news on the entire slate, at least the biggest piece of news that we're still waiting on. Kyrie Irving, questionable to play in this game. Sounds like he's been kind of dealing with the same foot injury for most of the season so far. He's played in most of the games, but obviously if you take him off the court, Luka against maybe the worst defense in basketball, certainly when you combine the pace of the team, becomes just an amazing play to kick off the slate. The Wizards pretty much healthy, still missing Delon Wright, but that doesn't change a whole lot for them. So talk to us, Dallas, Washington. Obviously address the Kyrie news, and what else are you doing with this game?
Yeah, I mean, a massive 245 total. I think the books listened to us. We talked about the Pacers overs, which was nice. And, bets wise, the bets beats they hit a little bit different than the DFS beats for some reason. There's a few painful games. I was on the Nuggets -4. Reggie Jackson missed 2 free throws. I mean, the Nuggets, they're up 6 with like 38 seconds left in the game with Reggie Jackson at the free throw line. I mean, that has to be like, what, 95% to get there? And obviously it doesn't. Nuggets still win. But anyways, I digress. Massive total here, 245 points. Ownership-wise, like, what's funny is when I kind of looked around the industry where projections are at, it was like Corey Kispert was the value that was popping for some reason, which is kind of wild to me in a game like this. And that's for a few reasons. One, the rotations for both teams have been a little bit unpredictable outside of, Dallas and their studs and Luka and Kyrie. And the peripheral pieces there's just not enough to go around for them to get there. Now, in a game against the Wizards, we could definitely see some random guys get there in this one. The other thing, too, is if Kyrie sits, like Luka could put up 80 in this spot. He literally could. And even if Kyrie's out, like I feel like people might be hesitant to click on Luka's name coming off that 19-point performance. I mean, that has to be the floor of all floors. I can't remember a time where Luka has ever put up like 19 DraftKings points. I mean, absolutely.
I remember when Luka was outscored by the other Luka Samanjic or whatever his name was. There was a slate where Luka like put up like a really bad score, and then that dude like had a ceiling game, which was amazing. But yes, you are correct. Luka's like floor is amazing, so obviously you have to love him.
And then on the other side too, the one thing with this game, why the total's so high, and why even if it was like 246, I would not touch the under is like we get no defense for either side, and both teams are constantly pushing. I will say with the Wizards, a very frustrating team. Another beat from the other night where they scored 1 point in the final 7 minutes, which was just incredible. We have seen a tighter rotation. Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma, and even Tyus Jones seeing a little bit more run there. And then Kubali, Denny, and these Landry Shamet, Kispert, kind of those other rotational pieces. With Gallinari back, that could factor in. We could see a wider rotation as well. So that is another risk there. But it might finally, if Kyrie plays, especially, because if you get Kyrie defense, guy doesn't play defense, that might actually be a matchup that Jordan Poole can finally get it done. And guys, like Jordan Poole's now, the price is finally more so correct, 6.8. He's finally getting more run, probably due to Delon Wright, being out, but 35 minutes, 6 for 16 last game. All the opportunity was there in a tougher matchup. I kind of like Jordan Poole tonight. This game is interesting. I just think you got to be careful with which pieces you target, maybe create some rules so that you're not overexposed to this one.
I swore off Jordan Poole a few slates ago, and I'm not going back to it here, even in the good matchup AP. Like even his good game, right? His 35 fantasy points at 7K, 6,800, like that. Even that's not really getting it done. So I don't know. I get the matchup's awesome, but I still need to see more from Poole. Mangone, obviously the big news is the Kyrie stuff. How big of a priority will Luka be if Kyrie's out? I mean, to me, you just start your lineup there and kind of figure it out as the night progresses, right? If Kyrie's out, that's my approach as of right now, at least.
So kind of. I mean, it depends on the other news, right? Because like if I told you Kyrie's out and then like all the other pieces of news are like all in, like, but we wouldn't have the value that we're hoping for. So I think that kind of goes a little bit hand in hand. The good news is I think there's a lot of news where if Kyrie is ruled out, that we will have value to kind of go to. So I really, truly think they go hand in hand. Like if you get a bunch of value open up, then Luka's ownership slowly skyrockets, right? So I think that's going to be a big piece of news that we're just going to sit and wait on. You could even make the case, let's say we are lacking for some value. Maybe plug in Luka and just like, hey, say, I'll see how the night goes and kind of pray that some guys are out, right?
That's what I think would be the right approach. Just start with Luka. I mean, that's Luka against the Wizards without Kyrie is not a bad place to start your lineup, and see how it all progresses.
Well, you could be sitting there, right, DC, and like, let's say Kyrie gets ruled out, and you're kind of like lacking value. And I know that Celtics game starts at what time? 7:30. Dude, we might have that game locked, and then we might not have the news on the Sixers, right? Where like you could make a case that, hey, just backloading and putting Luka in and just waiting isn't the worst idea. And then obviously those Sixers will open up some values for you possibly as we get closer. So I like Luka, definitely a good play. I don't mind Kyle Kuzma. I think he's fine, but he's not a priority at the forward position. I think he's a good spend option in tournaments. Same with Denny Avdia. I think he's a good option to go to at the small forward position. But then that's really it. When it comes to like the other options, like, sure, I think you can make a case for like Tyus Jones. Does he have a ceiling at that price? But as AP has talked about, like, these Wizards are a bit unpredictable. So if you roster someone like Tyus Jones and you only get like 25 minutes, don't tilt about it. You understand what you're getting yourself into. So for me, it's really Luka is the best play if Kyrie's out. If Kyrie's in, I really don't have any interest in this game, except I think Kyrie's price on FanDuel isn't bad at 8.5K. I'll at least call it out if he gets ruled in for this matchup. And then on the Wizards side, it's really just Kuzma and Denny Avdia as my two guys I'm really interested in.
All those people that were planning to tilt tonight, they're not going to anymore, Mangone. You told them not to tilt. They're not going to tilt. They're going to stay level-headed and stay in the game. They just needed the words of wisdom there. 3 games locking at 7:30 Eastern time. First of which we'll talk about is Milwaukee and Toronto. Big injury news here. Giannis going to sit this one out. We'll see probably the Dame Lillard show, although he's been a little bit underwhelming so far in a Milwaukee uniform. We'll talk about that. And then on the Toronto side, OG Anunoby, Gary Trent, looks like they're both going to miss this one. Currently listed doubtful. I would be surprised if either guy played. And then Dennis Schroeder is questionable. If he's out, I think it kind of opens up a lot for Toronto. He's got a very, very big role in that offense right now. AP does Dennis Schroeder. I think you'd see Siakam back to kind of his old role, more for Scotty Barnes, and then I think you would see Mr. Malachi Flynn enter the starting lineup. Would be my guess for Schroeder. I think he'd be an interesting play at 3.6K too. So a lot to talk about in this one. Break it down for us, Milwaukee and Toronto.
Yeah, so this spot, it was actually frustrating to watch. I mean, especially like when Malachi Flynn and it was Precious Achiuwa got in, it was like the way to take advantage of the Wizards is to push in transition. They have literally no transition defense, but with Malachi Flynn in there, he was just like walking it up. He was not pushing it, and he was basically getting their half-court offense set, and which allowed the Wizards, a bad defensive team, but still, if you allow the other team to get all set up, it makes it far easier defensively. I had no idea what they were doing. They looked very bad. And like they basically needed Barnes and Siakam out there. When one of those guys was off the court, the team they struggled, in my opinion. Schroeder obviously had a bad game in that one too. And then Otto Porter, talk about dust. Man, he did not look good.
Throw him in the Covington bin. Him and
throw them all in the same bin. But yeah, we should see a tightish rotation on the Raptors side, but not like as tight as we're all accustomed to seeing. And so you do got to be careful there. I'm still going right back to Siakam. I think Siakam's a great play. He's going to play a ton of minutes. I do think like Barnes, he's now 9.2K. That's just going to cap his ownership. I still think the upside is there. I mean, he put up a 67 piece. That was against the Spurs, somewhat of a better matchup. But on paper now, no Giannis, and it's Dame, Malik Beasley, horrible defenders. So you got 2 terrible defenders in the backcourt. Middleton's capped at like 19 minutes. Brolo down low, good defender. That's what he's known for. I think this is going to be a great spot, on the Bucks side and even a few pieces on the Raptors side. So my preference going right back to Siakam. Absolutely love him as a play here. And then it's Schroeder that we're looking at. The guys that are going to rotate in, I mean, Malachi Flynn, yeah, he would definitely be a fine play if Schroeder was ruled out. I mean, he's a 3K guy starting. I'm definitely going to play him. But I still worry because it's like he brings the ball up. He handed to Achua there at the top of the key, and then it's Achua's looking for Scotty Barnes or Pascal Siakam. Like he's literally looking for those two guys, and so expect a lot of the offense to run through those two guys. And then on the other side, I mean, look, we all know this game now. Anytime Giannis is out, Bobby Portis, mega chalk, a great play. He's 5'7". He's gonna be the top, probably the highest owned guy on the slate tonight. However, Brook Lopez many times last year smashed in this spot, and everyone forgets about Brolo in this spot. We just had Daniel Gafford. I think I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure it was like 4 blocks and a steal. I might be wrong in that. Maybe someone in the chat can check it out. He was beast down there in this matchup in the paint. So don't forget about Brook Lopez. He smashed and outscored Bobby Portis on many occasions last year when Giannis was out. Middleton's still tough. It's a hard minutes cap there. And then Dame Lillard, especially if Schroeder is out. I mean, it actually doesn't even matter if Schroeder's in. Dame Lillard, I think, is going to be a really nice play. This is why they brought him in. When Giannis is out, it's Dame's team. He needs to get it done. And then Marjan is going to be one of my favorite values at 3.5K. Can play him with the shooting guard, small forward position on the slate. So yeah, this is going to be one of there's 2 kind of premier games that are going to garner a lot of ownership. This is one of them, and it's one that you can't ignore on a slate like this.
Yeah, do we know for sure Portis is starting AP? If we know Giannis is out. Will he start at the 4 alongside Brook Lopez? I think he will.
I mean, if you go back to last year, that was the case, and with this rotation, with Middleton just being so capped at 19 minutes, they're rotating in Marjan and Pat Con. So you could have a little bit of rotational issues there, but I would think they would start Bobby Portis, but I guess we got to wait till officially it's announced.
Yeah, I don't mind that Lopez call,
there we
over Portis. I don't.
Yeah, Gafford, 3 blocks and a steal, almost 37 DK points. He had a good game. And Gafford's not a high usage guy at all. Brolo's going to get far more attempts than Gafford would.
And it makes sense. I mean, Portis obviously mostly plays a backup 5, right? When Giannis is in there, you take Giannis out of the equation, you're going to see a lot more minutes with Portis, Brook Lopez playing alongside each other, which certainly increases Lopez's minute ceiling and I think floor a little bit. So yeah, Milwaukee front court, certainly interesting. Mangone. I think a lot of people are going to play, as AP mentioned, Beauchamp. I'm not falling for the Middleton. I don't think it'd be chalk, but I wouldn't go there. Just the minutes limit seems to be too firmly in place. I just don't think they're going to relent on that for just one random game here in the middle of November. Connaughton, I kind of question his upside. So I guess, talk to us, Milwaukee, Toronto. What are you doing with the Dennis Schroeder news? And then I think a big choice that a lot of people are going to have to make is Damian Lillard versus Donovan Mitchell, right? We'll get to that game, I think, last. But that's an interesting spot, too, with Darius Garland out. For the Cavs, they're around the same price. You can play Mitchell at shooting guard, so you could certainly play both guys on the same lineup if you wanted to. But I think a lot of people ultimately will have to kind of decide between Lillard and Mitchell. Do you have a lean there? And talk to us about this game in general.
Yeah, I mean, the Dame versus Mitchell stuff is tough because Dame is very points dependent, right? It's definitely not a bad spot for him, but it's definitely a big decision, right, on this slate that you're going to have to make. You could obviously play both if we get enough value, and then of course, what if Luka comes into play, right? Then who knows what you're going to do with these guards? It's going to be interesting to see where the ownership kind of spreads out. I typically, there's definitely some bias against Dame. I'm not a huge Dame guy. But obviously in this role against Toronto, he could be a very good play at 9K. I do think Bobby Portis is going to steal some usage for sure. I'll admit I still don't have a take on the Mitchell and Lillard stuff. So maybe when we get to the Mitchell game, I'll have a better read on. I think value is going to help us with that a little bit too. But I do think we overlook sometimes how good these 9K guys are. For instance, everyone liked Embiid yesterday, and so did I. But I leaned on DeJounte Murray over him because of the role that he was in. So I do think someone like Damian Lillard might kind of win out here in this spot. I love Bobby Portis. This is just a spot where you can play Bobby Portis. I just don't care. I think he's one of the good pieces of chalk today. I'm going to be all over him. I just don't care. I think it's too good of a spot. You could make a case that Bobby Portis can sometimes steal too much usage from some of these guys. He just absolutely goes nuts on the boards and just like dominates the game. So I am definitely really interested in Bobby Portis. He's my favorite player in this game, followed by Dame at number 2, followed by Brook Lopez at number 3. The Toronto stuff is going to be interesting because we don't have the full news here. Right now, we currently have Trent Jr. and OG doubtful. I'm assuming that they're out. We'll see what happens here. I think we'll get an update in about like 23 minutes on that. And then Schroeder is questionable. Listen, everyone wanted to play Schroeder the other day. He's going to have virtually no ownership at 6'8". I don't think it's the craziest idea to go back to him in tournaments if he's in with these guys at doubtful. I think it's an interesting flop black spot on him in tournaments. But the two guys to really look at are Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam at 8.7K and 9K. Like, again, more guys in like that 9K range that you want to have some interest in. I think I would like them more than Damian Lillard in this spot, at least one of those guys. I just think it's a really good spot to get exposure to them. So I'm leaning on it being Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam are like 1A and 1B, followed by Damian Lillard there. And then, of course, it depends what happens with the news and these other value plays that could open up, because one of these point guards is going to be an extreme value, right? Like, could it be Grady Dick at 3.5K? Could it be Malachi Flynn at 3.6? I think it's really up in the air on who it is. It just depends on who the hot hand is. I really think that's how they're going to do it. They're going to send him out there, see how it goes, and then just kind of go from there. So that's kind of my read on it. But again, the news is going to be important. And the point is, I think we're going to get enough news on the Raptors side of the ball where it's going to allow us to have these really good spends, like you talked about, Mitchell, Lillard, Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes, and then maybe Luka, right? We already have a ton of spends that we're interested in.
Yeah.
And then it's going to allow us to get some values, too, on the Raptors side, where it's going to be a stars and scrubs night, I think, at the end of the day.
It does certainly seem to be shaping up that way in terms of stars and scrubs. Question from the chat. I think it's a good one from Cody Hand. AP, you've talked about rules. I know you're not maybe the biggest rule guy in NBA. Would you max one of Portis and Rolo in your lineups? I think is a reasonable question there.
I wouldn't. That's one rule I wouldn't make, just because their price tags are both pretty low. So it's more of like Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes.
Sure.
I want one max of either of them, because like I just don't want any lineups to randomly have both guys. So
yeah, I agree with you, AP. I think you brought up good points on that. And I think the other thing we get ourselves in trouble with, like, I know I have a mental block with it, but like, what if you made a rule yesterday, like max 2 of like Sadiq Bey, Hunter, and Bogdanovich? Like, okay, all 3 absolutely smacks. Do you know what I mean? It's just, I don't think that's the correct rule to set. I agree with you. Like, when you look at Pascal Siakam and Barnes, well, it's hard for them at their ownership on a huge slate to get there. But I also like to set the rules when we start to get to higher amounts of players, right? Like, I don't want to have maybe like $4 on an 8-game slate, right? I think if you limit it to like 3, that's perfectly fine. But 4, I just don't think it's necessary. Do you get what I'm saying there, AP?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And like 2 other examples, like on this slate alone, Jalen Brunson or Julius Randle. I always make that one. Trae Young or DeJounte Murray. So it's more so when we're dealing with higher price guys. Like, I think Jordan Poole or Kyle Kuzma is another standard rule. Just these guys that need the ball in their hands, and you can just see them alone. If they get, like, if Poole gets hot, you think he's going to give the rock up? Like, no. And we haven't seen him hot yet all season long. Like, he's not giving the ball up. He's going to be taking half-court jumpers. I mean, that's what Jordan Poole does.
Yeah, and another thing to look at too on like for instance the Raptors the other day, if you set a rule max of 4 Raptors, what might have happened is you got a ton of Pascal Siakam, you got a ton of Scotty Barnes, and you got a ton of Dennis Schroeder, and then you got none of the other guys, right? Like, so it's something that when you go through and build the teams, look and see what it's doing. And on a 4-game slate, I wouldn't have set that rule. Obviously, it's an 8-game slate, it's different, but I just think you have to, like, if you do set those rules, you have to go through and look and say, well, maybe I'm getting 100% of 3 of these guys, but I'm getting none of the other ones. And you have to make sure you're still getting exposure to those other cheap Raptors. So it's just something I think you have to like take slate by slate, look at what the optimizer is doing,
yeah,
how to make the decisions.
Hey, so like that's such a good point. I mean, it's a slate by slate thing, but that's what saved me the other night with Toronto. This Toronto team isn't the same team with the ultra tight rotations when a lot of people are out. And so what I think the rule I did was all the players that I liked from Toronto, I said a max of 3. And because I just did not see it was a max of 3 or 4. And that's actually the rule that ended up saving me, because we had a lot of guys on the Toronto side that were chalk that ended up busting, Dennis Schroeder being one of them.
Yeah, a lot going on in this slate. I'll go on the record. I'll say maybe he'll prove me wrong tonight. I'm a little bit worried about Lillard's health. Obviously missed, was it the majority of last year with that calf injury? So far this year, shooting 37% from the field and 27% from 3. Obviously on the new team, getting up there in age a little bit. Slightly concerned. He's not quite the player that we remember. And if I do got to choose, I'm definitely leaning personally Donovan Mitchell over Damian Lillard. I do believe projections are going to have them very, very close at the end of the day. That's Milwaukee, Toronto. We'll move to New York and Atlanta. This one probably a quick one for me. We do see Trae Young returning after the 1-game absence. We obviously saw a bunch of Atlanta guys get there yesterday, especially that 2-3-4. I talked about it on the show yesterday. I really like those guys. All 4 of them. 3 of them, I think, ended up getting there in the end. But with Trae Young back, that obviously changes things. We know New York likes to play at a slow pace. Really, the only injury news we're waiting here, AP, is RJ Barrett. He's had a pretty solid season for the Knicks so far. Missed Monday's game with a migraine, I believe. I would assume he'll be good to go here. Those usually don't last multiple days, but I guess we'll see. Questionable. Everyone else, I think, in this game that's been in should be in here. High total for a Knicks game at 230, a low one kind of for a Hawks. Obviously, teams that play 2 different styles of basketball. Talk to us, Knicks and Hawks.
Yeah, if RJ Barrett smashed in this matchup earlier in the year, put up like 41 DK points. Again, it goes back to my rule, though. Jalen Brunson or Julius Randle, the Hawks, a team that we like to attack. They play with a lot of pace, and we know what the Knicks want to do. I typically avoid them in most spots, but tonight, Julius Randle, 8.2K. I think it's a little too cheap. And I do like that hard rule, though. Brunson or Randle, not playing them together. The matchup is good for both of them, to be honest. So maybe I'm this slate. Those rules, DC, you make up such a good point. Like, those rules are so slate by slate. Like, if we didn't have some of these other elite plays, I would definitely remove that rule. But tonight, I do think it's going to be like Brunson or Randle. And then Josh Hart. If RJ Barrett was out, Josh Hart played like 43 minutes against Boston. So he would make for like a pretty safe floor type of play. And then, with Trae Young back, DeJounte Murray, we can't go there, 9.1K. Trae Young, obviously missed due to the birth of his second child. So if you believe in like baby narratives or anything like that, maybe we can ask our boy Glock to see how his performance has been in the DFS streets after having his first child. And we can use that information and roll with it. But no, it's a pace down spot for Atlanta. I mean, I'm leaving Trae in my pool at 9.3 just because it's Trae Young. You never know, but I'm not as excited about the Hawks side of this one.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense. I think Randall probably my favorite play in this game at 8,200. And he does get a nice bump. Most of the Knicks do. If RJ Barrett ends up sitting, Knicks don't really have a ton of high usage guys to take his place. Talk to us, Mangone, Knicks and Hawks.
Yeah, I do have information on Glock's DFS play. Last night he got 12th in the $100 single entry. Robert Covington held him back. So as long as he doesn't lost to Robert Covington today, I think the baby swag's going well for him, and hopefully it goes well there. But we're on the Hawks and Knicks. And I mean, this is a game that we need the RJ Barrett news, right? That's going to be important. If he's out, Josh Hart becomes into play. But to be fair, Josh Hart is starting to get to a tag where it starts to get a little uncomfortable at 5.7K. Dante DiVincenzo, he has only shown the ceiling once, but you could make a case in tournaments at 4.6. It's not the craziest idea. Obviously, with Trae Young being back and some of these prices on the Hawks going up, we're just not super interested in them, I think, in this spot. I think you can make a case for Trae Young at 9.3 as a contrarian tournament play. I mean, The dude is 9-3, and if you look at his game logs this season, his worst game is a 37.75 so far. Other than that, he's been really good in that nice little range. Like, I don't hate it, especially a spot where I think he could easily boom. We know Trae Young is the type of player that has absolutely crushed the Knicks. It's been like a little bit of a narrative for him. So I don't mind Trae Young as a contrarian tournament pivot, but that's really it. And then on the Knicks side of the ball, I need to know the RJ Barrett news, because if he's out, Jalen Brunson at 8K, really interesting tournament play. Julius Randle at 8-2. I think he's a good tournament play too. So that's really the two guys that I'd be interested in as spend-up options on the Knicks if Barrett's out. If Barrett's in, I'm not that excited about them. And then Trae Young would be a contrarian tournament play that I have interest in a little bit.
Yeah, Chat saying Trae Young with big history against the Knicks. Very true. And I don't know. I kind of the baby narrative, AP. I can see that coming in for Trae Young with a big game. He'll be really low owned, I think, with people flocking to guys like Mitchell, Damian Lillard, Luka if Kyrie's out. So yeah, you could potentially get a big game out of Trae Young at, I think, very low ownership. Move on to the next game though. Boston and Philadelphia, two of the very best teams in the NBA, both offensively and defensively. 224 total in this one. Boston favored by 5, but we are waiting on significant injury news on both sides of the ball. Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis are questionable for Boston, and then Joel Embiid, who was questionable yesterday for the Sixers, did end up playing, obviously, and played, had a huge game, but played 38 minutes in a fast-paced game against the Pacers. You would imagine if he was legitimately questionable yesterday, which it seemed like he was, maybe they give him a rest here. But nationally televised game against the division rival Boston Celtics, you could argue either way. We'll just have to wait and see on Embiid. But obviously, if he's out, it does open up quite a bit for Philadelphia, even in a tough matchup against Boston. So kind of hard to dissect this game with all the big news we're waiting on, but do your best over there, AP.
Yeah, so Philly got the best of this Celtics team in their first matchup. Philly was at home. I don't know, being on a second half of a back-to-back, I do believe it's a true questionable type of situation. 37 minutes yesterday, fast-paced game, like you said. It's really tough to speculate. And so here's what I've been doing. And this is where I actually really like SaberSim. So anyone playing yesterday's slate, the Joel Embiid's news, it hit 19 minutes before that game locked up. And so we're getting close enough to lock where, like for me, it's a little different because we got, content stuff that we do as well that we prioritize, obviously. But then I got my own stuff too that I got to get to. So I added a tab in SaberSim, like on the builds, and I just titled it Embiid out, and then, Embiid in my other one. And so I knew I ran all my stuff the same as if Embiid was out, and I did it before. So I might honestly do something similar before the first game locks, and actually the first game, it's not one that's going to take too many players out of our player pool. So it's probably one that you could fade. It seems like a dumb idea to fade a 245 game, but you could arguably do it on this slate, given all the other plays that we have, and wait for that news. But you could still do that. And then maybe if the news hits at 5 minutes till, you're able to adjust before the game's locked. So that's something using SaberSim that I like to do to prepare for it. Because if Embiid is out, that's going to bump up Tobias Harris, D'Anthony Melton, Tyrese Maxey, and then Paul Reed would obviously get the start. If Joel Embiid is out, what I want to know, we're still not going to Robert Covington, right? The price is up. I think we can easily avoid that spot. I wouldn't even consider it at all. But Paul Reed would become one of the better values as well on the slate. So, and then on the Boston side too, Jaylen Brown goes out. We bump up Tatum. I would actually really like Derek White in this matchup. I think the price tag at 6K is very fair. And you could go Drew Holiday or Derek White. And then it would be Sam Hauser off the bench that I think would get extended run here if Jaylen Brown is out.
Yeah, Celtics, amazing starting five, but they don't have a ton of guys off the bench to replace someone like Jaylen Brown or really any of their starters, Mangone. So if you do get one or both of Brown or Porzingis out, yeah, I think this game becomes a lot more interesting. And obviously the same thing can be said about Embiid. So talk to us, Boston and Philly.
Yeah, it's worth noting. I know Joel Embiid's on this amazing streak, but does he sit because he's scared? Because the Embiid stopper's there, Al Horford, right? And Embiid has definitely had his way with, or Horford has had his way with Embiid over time. But hey, if Porzingis sits, I think it's a great spot for Al Horford, right? The minutes are just going to be there. They're going to need him out there if Embiid's on the floor. They're going to use him a ton. So even at 5'5", I think Al Horford is a player I wouldn't ignore. I know he's been really bad, but I like him in tournaments. I think he's worth.
And old. We keep talking about these old dudes.
he's old, but it's like, it's the spot, right? I mean, it's the spot where if I told you you were considering playing him, right? And we said this with Boucher the other day. How did our boy Chris Boucher do? I forget what he ended up getting. Let me see. But if I had to draw up a spot for Horford, it's definitely an interesting one. Yeah, Boucher didn't do bad against Washington, but they're gonna use him.
Boucher's not old though. I mean, he's what, like 25? 20?
I get it.
Who knows?
But guys like Al Horford, they turn the clock back when it matters. And against Joel Embiid, that's where it matters, right? That's when their number is going to be called. So I don't hate the Al Horford idea. Derek White was definitely hurtful to me the other day. I somehow got baited into him against the Knicks. Don't ask me how. It just kind of happened. Drew Holiday, 6.9K. Yeah, I don't think it's worth spending for. But if you get Jalen out and Porzingis, I think it could be intriguing. And Jason Tatum, obviously at 10.1K. It's a hefty tag, but if you're missing Jaylen Brown and Porzingis, there's going to be a ton of usage there. So that injury news is going to be important. And then the Philly side of the ball, Embiid is pretty much in play at any time right now with how good he's been. But I think if you get the news that Kyrie's out, I'd much rather play Luka. That would be kind of my take on it. I wouldn't talk someone out of playing Embiid with the way he's playing, but I would just say, hey, I'd rather have Luka. I'd rather have some of these other studs that we're looking at on this slate. So, yeah. And when it comes to the Philadelphia side of the ball, if Embiid is out, Maxey, 9.5 feels like a hefty tag, but I would still consider it. I would like Tobias Harris a lot at 6.6K. I think it would be a pretty interesting spot for him with the usage he's going to get. And it's going to be a really good spot for value play Paul Reed, right? Like, how do you ignore Paul Reed at 4.4K in this matchup? Just the usage he's going to get if Embiid's out. So we really need to get that news. That's something we're just kind of like sitting and waiting on, and then we'll kind of make the decision once it comes.
Yeah, and I do feel a little foolish. All these NBA players who are like 4 or 5 years younger than me, calling them old and dusty while they're making $15 million in the NBA, and I'm here talking about them live on YouTube. So, yeah, I'll lay off roasting these guys too much. Let's move to the 8 p.m. Eastern time games. First one we'll talk about Orlando. I think there's actually only one at this time slot. But, yeah, Orlando and Chicago. Low total on this one, sitting at 215.5, I believe the lowest total on the slate. Chicago, there's been some news out of Chicago beat writers or whatever. They're considering trading Levine. They need to blow this team up, right? The DeRozan, Levine, Vucevic combo, they've tried it for seems like 3 or 4 years now. Just not going to get the job done. They've been awful this year. DeRozan is going to sit this game, though, which you do got to consider Levine and Vooch with DeRozan out. We've been talking all year. Once one of these guys go out, we'll maybe be on the Chicago guys. So we've said we're not excited about them when all three are in. And I got to admit, AP, I'm still not that excited about the Levine and Vooch, even with DeRozan out, but maybe you can talk me into some of these guys. Caruso also questionable. And then looks like for Orlando, they should be mostly a full go outside of Markelle Fultz missing another game. Obviously, Wendell Carter remains out with the longer-term injury. Orlando, Chicago, 215 total. Talk to us.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think we're all surprised. Like, Spencer Dinwiddie comes out of, like, nowhere and puts up a 50-piece DraftKings points-wise against this Orlando team. So, I don't know. I actually like the Bulls tonight. I think they win. Anytime we hear like these like rumors and stuff like that, usually motivates people. And here's the thing too. We got some revenge narrative. Nikola Vucevic going against his former team. Maybe chat again. Be a hero can look this up. I haven't looked this up. I'm pretty sure he has some big numbers against this team. I don't mind bigs against the Magic either. 7-8 is a fair price tag. But the other thing too is we're going to get potentially a very tight rotation. So even though the total is low, the projected pace is not projected to be that good. We're going to have a tight rotation, and that's something that we like in DFS. So Kobe White, Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, Pat Williams, those are kind of the key guys that I really like on the Bulls side. Torrey Craig would be the likely starter, and then you got to think Alex Caruso plays. But as far as like power forwards, the fours and fives, they're kind of thin right now. So like you got to think Patrick Williams, Torrey Craig, these guys are going to play heavy minutes, and Vucevic heavy minutes, LaVine heavy minutes tonight. So another good spot. I love that you can play LaVine at the shooting guard or small forward position. And then 5-5 for Kobe White, I think is a fine price tag. So I actually have some interest in this game. I think the Bulls win, and at home against a Magic team that just got dusted by the Nets yesterday. I'm high on the Magic team, but it's just the NBA. It's a week by week type of thing, or night by night type of thing. So I'm a little down on them right now, and I don't think I have any interest. I mean, Jalen Suggs, the 5'8" price tag just kind of scares me. There's better plays. I'm probably comfortable here fading or being under the Orlando side.
Yeah, I'm not big on Orlando here. Certainly the Chicago side, Mangone, that's more interesting. We did get an answer on Vooch. Sounds like he had 2 50 fantasy point games last year against Orlando, and the past couple of years not that great. If we can trust Mr. Brian McIntyre, which I'm going to choose to do. Brian, I think you got the right information there. Man, go and talk to us. Orlando, Chicago.
Yeah, man, Orlando, Chicago's a rough one. I will say that. Yeah. I mean, you could make a case for some of these Bulls. When I went through to look at some props, I was just like, I couldn't find a damn thing. I was like, this is just brutal. But DFS-wise, like, Vucevic, like, he's definitely a good center option today. Don't get me wrong. But I could see this game just being absolutely dusty. I know DeRozan's out, right? You just see it being absolutely gross, and you just feel like an idiot for even rostering Bulls when a lot of people are considering rostering Bulls on this slate, right? We have all these spend up like 9K guys, and honestly, center isn't great at the moment, right? The state of the center position on this slate, it's yes, Bobby Portis is there, but you can play him at power forward if you want. It's just not a fun position to roster today. This is one of the spots where I noticed I didn't have as many options to kind of get to. So I don't know if I'm going to be super excited about Vucevic. I think he's fine. It is a Vucevic revenge game. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but Vucevic's numbers have been really good against the teams that he's played against in the past.
I just gave him Mangone. You're back to your poor listening.
Mango. Your play of the day was, and I know this because I played him and he was on my best team because he smashed, and that's what Mangone's play of the day does. Cam Johnson against the same Orlando team. The numbers yesterday were like Bridges put up 40, Cam Johnson 36, Dinwiddie 51. So
no, it's good.
It could happen.
It can happen. I guess it's gonna really determine like how good are these like 9K guys versus the 7s, right? Because we have like LaVine in there, he's definitely interesting for sure. I don't hate the Zach LaVine thing. He's usually just gonna be at 7-7 with DeRozan out. I don't know, and I just feel like I've gotten baited into these Bulls, and like, do I want to do that on this slate? I'm torn. And the reason APY Vucevic I think is a better play than LaVine is the actual positions, right? Because again, center doesn't have a lot of plays you can go to. Like if you rattle off the list of centers, I mean, it's rough. I don't like any Magic options. I'm just out on the Magic. No interest in rostering them. But for me, it's like probably Vucevic number 1, LaVine number 2, and then it's followed by Ayo DeSomo if I need him as a value. But what's probably going to happen on this slate is the more I look at the slate, and the more I get news, I'm going to be like, I don't need to play him. So I'll probably be out on him for the most part. And it's really just looking at, do I want to spend on Vucevic and do I want to spend on Zach LaVine?
So real quick, I'm dying over here. I pulled up the core plays page just because I wanted to get some of my FanDuel stuff early. And our guy K Fallick, we all love Kevin. He's got his core, and now I stepped in for our guy Gary today. He had some emergency things come up at work, so I did the playbook. I did the heat map. I've done like 2 full reviews of the slate, which means like I've literally gone in, looked at almost every viable player. We got a guy in his core that I'm like, where is this? Where did this guy come from? Oh, it'll be fun talking about that.
I pulled it up too. I know who you're talking about.
Amoni Bates. I was like, what?
I was going to say like,
blowout run. It could be a blowout run. I mean, we'll get to that game. It could definitely happen.
We shouldn't give it out because it's a K-Phallic secret. But you could also argue we shouldn't give it out because we don't want people playing Moni Bates and coming after us.
To be fair, I got to go back and look at the Discord. I'm sure he
I saw the message in Discord and I looked into it.
I haven't read it yet. I'll get to it. I'll get to it.
A different conclusion than Mr. Phallic, but hey, he's better than me, and maybe Mr. Bates will come through. I think that's it for Orlando and Chicago. Kind of an ugly game there. We'll move it on to the 9 p.m. Eastern time game. Minnesota and Phoenix. My Timberwolves beating up on the Warriors. Well, actually, it was the Warriors who physically beat up on the Timberwolves with the Draymond Green. Looks like the UFC out there, dragging Rudy Gobert across the court. We'll see on the suspension there. But it is the Timberwolves who came away with their 7th straight win. Another good defensive performance. They go into Phoenix tonight. I think kind of a letdown spot here, AP, for Minnesota coming off that emotional win last night. But, man, Wolves are playing really, really good basketball right now. We'll see Phoenix most likely for the first time with their big three, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, all should be on the court tonight for Phoenix. I think Beal and Booker will be on minutes limitations. So we'll see there. We just got the Kyrie news. He is out, so we can revisit that maybe after this game or after we get through the last 2 games. But, yeah, Minnesota, Phoenix, 224 total here. Phoenix favored by 5.
Did they announce like suspensions or anything like that on the Wolves side for that? Like what went down in that game? I mean, the Wolves players are fine, right?
I think McDaniels is the only guy that could be suspended. I believe they should be good to go for the most part, at least. But yeah, I mean, with Phoenix having their big three back and the way Minnesota plays defense, and probably nobody out for Minnesota, this is I think. Along with Orlando, and maybe even less interesting, I think, than Orlando or Chicago. I really don't see going to much of anything here. What about you, AP?
Yeah, too many mouths to feed on the Suns side, and they're all priced up like one of them is out. So it's an easy fade, in my opinion, on the Suns side. And then my take on the Wolves and how I am tackling this situation is if I randomly landed on like a Karl Anthony Towns or something like that, I think I'm going to be fine with it. But I want to max like Anthony Edwards too. I mean, if I liked everything else in my build and my last guy in was Ant Edwards, am I really going to be that mad at the build? Probably not. So I could definitely see myself having a little bit of the Wolves side. Suns full fade for me, but I think it's going to be kind of like a one max, trying to seek out that upside in Ant Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns type of play.
It would make sense, I think, for Edwards to kind of carry this team tonight after Towns did it last night. I worry more about the big man coming off the back-to-back. Edwards had a lower usage game for him, and going up against Beal and Booker in that backcourt for Phoenix does seem like a potential Ant spot. I'm not super excited about the play or anything, Mangone, but he would be my favorite guy on the Wolves. Talk to us, Phoenix and Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm not like super excited about this game. I don't think anything's going to happen on the Minnesota side with random news after the brawl that happened yesterday, which DC as a Timberwolves fan, who is in the right and wrong? Do you have any takes on that one? Because I have some takes on that.
I think Draymond needs to sit out a few games, especially with his history personally, but yeah.
Well, I agree he needs to sit out, but I don't think he was like in the total wrong he went a little far.
Come on. He doesn't need to drag him by his neck halfway across the board.
Was it excessive? Yes, but was the reaction correct? I think he was supposed to react in the way he was, but then he went too far.
I wish Cat was standing right there. I wish Cat would have clocked him with a right hook, and then we would have saw some real.
But betas don't jump on in.
No, Cat's never doing that.
Cat showed some of his cards there. Not a big go.
He made him play on the court. We'll take it.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
I mean, DC, if I saw someone put you in a chokehold, I'm getting in there. Don't you worry. I'm getting involved. So it's just it's clear. But this game is not a great DFS game for what it's worth. If you just look at the price tags, it's kind of tough to roster something. Obviously, the Suns have gotten a little bit crowded, so I'm not super excited about any of them. And I mean, Ant Edwards. I love Ant Edwards. I'm a big fan of him, but the price tag is tough, and there's all these guys in this range. I think this game is a pretty good fade for me these days.
Yeah, makes sense with Minnesota Phoenix. You guys want to do Kyrie after these last two games, and then this. No, well, let's do it now. Kyrie Irving just ruled out. People are talking about it in the chat. I think it makes Luka. I mean, for me, hard to fade Luka in a 245 total with no Kyrie Irving there. But it does make you leave out some other good plays, and he is very expensive. So I guess I could see someone else making the case on the other side. So your thoughts here on Luka, AP, and then what else from Dallas? Because obviously it's a big player for Dallas that's out, and this is still, it's the nut matchup. It really is against Washington. So you could see multiple Mavericks get there. Your overall thoughts here on the Mavericks with the Kyrie news?
Yeah, big upgrade, obviously, to Luka. Nice bounce back spot against a team that he should absolutely be able to pick apart. I mean, it's just like such a nut matchup for Luka and what he does. Josh Green, another guy that I personally would bump up. I wouldn't be surprised if he started also. And then THJ, it's the price tag is not nice at 5'9". He's going to come off the bench, but the pace he's going to chuck. Does he have the ceiling at that price? That's kind of what you have to determine. So arguably the play like Karis LeVert, Max Strus, probably better plays than him, but Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to make my pool. I think Luka is just such a good play tonight. You're what? Like, what do you think his floor? Like, what do you think his floor against this Wizards team is? Like, I mean, always like if we get the fully
65.
motivated Luka,
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to go. They had Herb Jones back yesterday, one of the better defenders out there. They threw the sink at him. Now against the Wizards, like obviously, like arguably the best matchup that he's going to see. I mean, yeah. I don't know. I like 65 plus for Luka tonight. I think it's reasonable.
That was my answer. 65 seems like
50 raw. I like how Steve's thinking. 50 raw.
50 raw. Mangone, your thoughts here, Mavericks?
Yeah, obviously Kyrie's out, right? That's huge news, and Luka's going to be a huge play. The one thing I guess we should call out, like, let me go to some of the prices because, man, I wish I would have made some bets on these cheap shitters here. We can't play Derek Jones Jr. at 4.9. That sounds egregious. I don't know. It's just really hard to play these other options. I guess Derek Lively could be interesting in a Wizards matchup just because the Wizards are one of the best spots against centers. The one thing I think you're going to run into, though, DC, that you get a little bit nervous about is, like, what if they go small, right? Then Derek Lively's minutes are absolutely cut. So I think there's some upside in tournaments, but, like, if you're, playing, like, cash games, right? Let's say you're playing, single entry, 3-max stuff. You might be a little bit more nervous to roster a Derek Lively here. So I guess for me, it's mainly just Luka or bust with the Dallas stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
I could see. Couldn't you guys on the comment there? And I'm changing my tags around. Isn't this very similar to like the Hornets? What we saw, just pick and roll season all day. I think Lively put up like 36 DK points. I'll have to go back and kind of review the situation, but don't you think they just pick them apart with a pick and roll? I mean that's where I would play him. Like if I'm playing Lively, I'm pairing him with Luka. That's just what I would do.
Makes a lot of sense to me. And Lively, the minutes haven't always been there. I do think, like, he's a young, up-and-coming player, right? So you do see more minutes volatility for players like him. And I do think if he's playing well, which, I mean, it's a pretty...
Did you guys see the Seth Curry video?
Yeah.
Like on Twitter? Yeah. Someone was asking about Seth Curry. So I'm still probably not playing him. But unless he randomly started.
I kind of like the Derek Lively call. It's a little risky, but the price I think is cheap enough. 5,200 matchup there.
I'm telling you, if you want to be a contrarian tonight, overstack this game and not like don't fill out your whole lineup with it. But 245 total. There's going to be no defense. Luka, Josh Green, Lively. Get Poole in maybe one other piece or a Kuzma. I mean, who knows? Crazier things have happened. Crazier things have happened.
AP, just one thing to call out when you say this, don't do 3 Wizards, like max 2, maybe. Like,
yeah, max 2. You're right. You're right.
I want to see AP 777 up top.
I mean, if you hit the nuts, it goes to OT, then double OT, then it's like you're lapping the field.
Sometimes it's like I feel like I feel like I can only do 1 because if I do 2, right? I feel like I'm going to look at myself at the end of the night and be like, man, I was really trying to get away with something, right? Like, I don't know. I struggle with it. I think only one is where I would go for the max for me. But because I just feel like a moron. If I play Tyus Jones and Kuzma, one guy's got a snowflake, I'd be like, man, I really tried to get away with it there, and I just didn't get away with it.
I'm only playing 3 lineups tonight. I'm not going down with the Jordan Poole on the first game of the night. Have to close the laptop 8 minutes into the slate. No, I'm not falling for it.
Hey, if you want a guaranteed early screenshot, go ahead and do it. Do it. I guarantee you'll be at the top of the leaderboards for the first 30 minutes. There you go.
We got huge news. Porzingis and Jaylen Brown out. Like, not just one, we got both out. So that's a very big piece of news that just came.
Yes, it is. I guess while we're going back in time with Dallas, we'll do it with Boston as well. So it hasn't come across my feed, but I trust you, Mangone, obviously. So we're going to say Porzingis, Jaylen Brown, both out. I mean, the rest of the Celtics, right? Like, I think Tatum, obviously, but Derek White and I don't know, even Drew Holiday, I think it has to be in play at this point. You talked about Al Horford. We'll go to you first, AP. What are you doing with Boston with this big news? Obviously, still a lot depends on what the Sixers do with Embiid. I do actually think this makes them more likely to maybe sit Embiid. I'm not sure. Maybe that's just
yeah. I mean, we got multiple games now that we can stack up. Boston, they're still going to run a tight rotation. They already lost once to Philly. Like, they don't want to lose again. Is this the game where, like, Jason Tatum, puts the team on his back and puts up a 60 piece? I mean, that could happen. I think Derek White, Drew Holiday, both are going to be really, really good plays here as well. And then Sam Hauser off the bench. Al Horford maybe, but I don't know. I'm still not sold at 5.5. He's just been dusty, but
we're leaving Al Horford to Mangone. Mangone can play.
If Al Horford is like his play of the day, I'm going to leave him in my player pool. I'm going to play him, because I respect Mangone and what he says.
I want to just check a little bit before, we got some time. I want to see what what all the projection adjustments are from everyone, right? I want to see what the ownership is going to be, but I just don't think it's crazy. Like, Al Horford's a great fantasy producer, and it's one of those things where it's like he's gonna be on the court. Like, could you see Al Horford playing 30 to 35 minutes tonight? I could. I think it's possible. Who on earth else do they have? Who do you see? Who are the centers that they can play on the Celtics today? They just don't have any, right?
No, I mean, especially if Embiid. We got Luke Cornett.
Yeah.
If Embiid, if he was healthy though too, why not? I would play him here and just try to get two wins over Boston.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows?
I mean, to be fair, Embiid's been questionable every single day. They just don't have anyone. It's going to be Luke Cornett. Honestly, at times what they might do is when Embiid is out, they might just play Tatum at the 5, right? They could easily do that, so they don't have to play shitty Luke Cornett. There's no way we're going to see Luke Cornett for more than 10 minutes tonight. It's just, he's terrible.
I did run the numbers just now, taking Porzingis, Jaylen Brown off the court, seeing what the Celtics look like after that. And Sam Hauser is popping, at least in that metric. He's at 44 fantasy points per 36 minutes, which, I mean, they're thin, man. I think Sam Hauser could be looking at a big minutes workload. So give me Sam Hauser over.
I mean, does Tatum get lost in the mix here? I mean, he's such a good play. That's so much usage now that's going to go. I guess it's more shots too for. Or no, I mean, it has to be Sam Hauser. What? Now Horford starts. It's going to be interesting. Tatum is a much better play now too.
Yeah, no question about that. So that's Boston, Philadelphia, still waiting.
But you probably can't play Luka and Tatum, and then if you played Luka and Tatum, you're what? You're forced to fade Donovan Mitchell and some of these other plays that we're talking about. So this is going to be a fun slate tonight, guys. It really is. And if you want to get different, it's going to be easy to do so.
This is one where you should feel pretty good about your lineup when it's all said and done, because there is a lot of very, very strong plays on this slate. It seems like all the questionable guys so far have been ruled out kind of while we've been.
My last comment too, just from doing this for a long time now, like in these situations, they can be a little overwhelming for sure. A lot of decisions to weigh against each other. Stick to what like we know. Like, so going back to Luka, we know it's the nut matchup. We know he's going to get all the usage. We know his floor is insanely high. So that's my one advice there.
Especially if you are feeling, anyone out there, feeling overwhelmed on what to do, like you can do no wrong. I mean, obviously prior to the game start, then spending a big chunk of your salary on Luka in the nut spot without Kyrie Irving, right? And then you can kind of figure it out as you go. So yeah, it's important not to overthink it when you do get kind of all this news bombarding you at once. Of course, we'll have Mr. Kevin Fallick himself, along with, I believe, Holden.
The core has to change, right? I can't wait for Up the Lock. It's going to be great.
He's sticking with, I already forgot his name, but Moni Bates. It's not moving from Fallick's score. But Fallick, JSU, and Holden will take you up to lock for the members. We do have 2 more games to talk about, including Cleveland and Portland, which at least prior to all this news that we've gotten in the last half an hour, looked pretty damn good to me, especially on the Cleveland side. We do know no Darius Garland. They're also missing Isaac Okoro. This is a team that runs a pretty tight rotation anyway. You take those 2 guys out of the equation, we should get Karis LeVert into the starting lineup. And Donovan Mitchell has been fantastic this entire season, but especially when he's been on the court without Darius Garland. My initial plan today, AP, was to get Mitchell and LeVert kind of in all 3 of my lineups. I don't know at this point if I can stick to that anymore, but I still do really like Mitchell, and I still think LeVert, even at not the lowest price tag, but 6,400. I think he's a very strong play going up against this Portland backcourt. And I was initially kind of interested in a game stack here with the Portland side as well. Skylar Mays, Shaedon Sharpe, just getting so much minutes and usage with all the guys out. But now I think it's kind of hard to pay $7.8K for Shaedon Sharpe with all the elite plays, especially on the high end, that have opened up. So, yeah, a lot of moving parts on this slate and in this game. Talk to us, AP, Cleveland and Portland.
Yeah, like my one concern with Donovan Mitchell now with how the slate's progressing and how we have, if the Boston game stays close, and if it's back and forth down the stretch, that's where you get a ceiling game out of a Jason Tatum. Are we going to have that type of environment here with the Blazers? I'm not confident in that at all. I mean, this Blazers, they're given 11 points on the road. I mean, that's indicative to how Vegas thinks this game's going to go. So blowout risk is a big concern there. And so, yes, Donovan Mitchell, a really, really strong play. Karis LeVert, very strong play. Max Strus, Mobley, all strong plays. I just, given the context now of the slate, I don't think like Donovan Mitchell's a lock. Like at 9-1, I don't know if I'm prioritizing him. I'm prioritizing Luka. I know they're separated by, a little price tag there, but it's more so if you're playing Luka and then you're playing one other, like a Tatum or someone else, you're not going to be able to fit Mitchell in there. So the Cavs side, very strong plays. I'm not sold that you have to lock them in at their current price tag. So curious to see how you guys are treating it. And then, yeah, I'm under on the Blazers side. Oh, they're like $7K for Skylar Mays. No way. Like Shaedon Sharpe is almost $8K. No, I'm not going to those guys.
I'm off those guys now. I originally had some interest in kind of a game stack here because the weakness of both of these teams is the backcourt defense, and then that's where all the minutes are going to go to, or the secure minutes. So I did have interest there, Mangone, but got to adjust when we get news. And for me, the Portland guys are going to have to take a back seat on my lineups. I still like the Cleveland guys because, we kind of talked about it with Joker yesterday. Like, if this game does turn into a blowout, I mean, it has to be Mitchell and LeVert because there's nobody else to score on Cleveland, right? Like, those guys have to carry the scoring load. They're just very little else in terms of that type of player on the Cavs. So I still really like Donovan Mitchell and LeVert, but I'm probably moving off of most of the rest of this game. And go and talk to us, Cleveland and Portland.
Yeah, Cleveland. So for one, earlier, Donovan Mitchell, people were really interested in, and I thought it was fine. I think it's more of a matchup. It's just Portland's really bad against guards. They got guys that don't play defense, but I didn't think he was just stone cold lock. And I thought his ownership was higher than I wanted it to be. But I thought he was a good play. But as we get more of this news, I'm not as interested in him, right? I think there's other plays that we're going to kind of want to gravitate towards. One guy I really like in tournaments that I think no one is interested in, that I think is a good play. I played him yesterday, was DeAndre Ayton. And as I kind of was looking at the slate deeper, I was like, he's a really good contrarian pivot off some of these other guys. And I think DeAndre Ayton at 7-3 is a good tournament play. I also have a bet on his overs on points, assists, and rebounds at 26.5. So if you want that free bet, I put it on Twitter. So yeah, I think it's a really good bet. And I think this is a good matchup. I think people sometimes think that the Jared Allen, Evan Mobley matchup is hard, but it's not as hard as people think. It's definitely a lot easier. And I think he's going to be on the court a lot because they need his size. So I like DeAndre Ayton a ton. Think he's a good tournament play. I don't mind Skylar Mays, but not as excited about him here now with some of the other news that we've kind of gained. So I think for me, it's really DeAndre Ayton in tournaments and Donovan Mitchell, maybe some Evan Mobley, but I don't know. The more I look at it, like I liked Evan Mobley before, but now that we have all this news, there's other plays I'd rather get to, right? Like Vucevic is a guy I talked about. I don't know if I'm going to get to now, but I'd rather get to him over an Evan Mobley, right? So I think Evan Mobley's just one of those guys that was the last guy in, and now he's kind of just fallen off.
That's kind of where I'm at with this game and Evan Mobley as well. One more game to talk about before we do. Just a reminder, please hit the like button if you've been watching and enjoying this show. It does help us bring you guys the show each and every day, 100% free here on the YouTube channel. And if you need more information, want to join the winner's circle, RPS 15 will get you 15% off your first payment. We've got the core plays obviously getting loaded up. Got the Discord and, of course, the Up to Lock show with JSU, Fallick, and Holden coming up right after us as well. With that, let's get to the last game of the night. It is the Sacramento Kings and LA Lakers. Big news in this one, and then if it's any indication how the rest of the news has gone, we'll see LeBron James sitting out, but he is currently questionable for this slate. I think, it's certainly significant. We saw Anthony Davis get not very many minutes last night, so he could, potentially be a full go. He's been playing kind of more minutes than ever, maybe starting to have an effect. But
they took care of business last night. I think it was a blowout, right? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, he should be a full go, and we'll see with LeBron. And then on the Kings side, obviously recently returned De'Aaron Fox, who had a pretty good first game back, putting up 42 fantasy points. 236 total in this one. So certainly be expected to be relatively high scoring AP. Kings and Lakers, talk to us here.
Yeah, so I'm like both teams relatively healthy, not like super high on this game despite the total. I will say with LeBron not questionable, like if he misses, that's a big upgrade to Anthony Davis and then Austin Reeves too, who finally is starting to wake up, and he's been playing pretty good of late, just hasn't been getting the minutes. So it's going to create some interesting contrarian plays. And then on the other side, it's just De'Aaron Fox in this matchup against D'Lo. I mean, I think the Kings win this game tonight. They've been playing really good. De'Aaron Fox is the best matchup. I'm not going to play Sabonis here against Anthony Davis. So underweight on this game, but I think it's an interesting spot for tournaments.
Yeah, I think you're going to see Fox and Anthony Davis both go under-owned here, Mangone. But, I mean, we've seen the big ceiling on Davis multiple times this year already, and I do like the matchup for him against this Kings interior, obviously, especially if LeBron sits. Talk to us, Sacramento and the Lakers.
Yeah, I think the last time he played the Lakers, it was a Sunday, and I said, De'Aaron Fox is going into my core. I told the Discord chat, and he had the 58-point game, and it was good times. I like Fox here a lot. 8.3K. It's just too cheap, right? Now, I think his ownership is going to also go down too with some of this news that we've gotten as well. He's going to get overlooked. So I like him in tournaments. I think he's a really good play to kind of go to. Lakers are tougher for me to get to. I just think, listen, AD, if he was power forward eligible, I'd be more interested in him at times. But I just can't get as interested in that center position at 10.2. I just don't think it's a good use of your salary. At least today, there's not as many centers to play, so that helps. But I just don't think I'd use my salary in that way. Same with LeBron. Not excited about playing him. I think it's mainly De'Aaron Fox or bust here for me. So De'Aaron Fox, definitely an interesting tournament option.
Yeah, makes sense with the Lakers and Kings. That's
I have
all.
great news for you, by the way. Great news. Not to cut you off, but you are excited about this piece of news we're going to have. Robert Covington starting again, so fire him up.
There we go.
Won't be in my lineups. I'll say that about Robert Covington. No matter what happens, Robert Covington not entering DC's lineups. Let's do plays of the day, and we'll get out of here. Up to Lock will take over after us. AP, let's go over to you for your play of the day.
Oh man, I was expecting you to go to Mangone, but all right, my play of the day. Now this could change, and if it changes, I'm gonna reach out to the members because we got a lot to do. There's a lot of numbers to readjust now with all this news hitting. I want to go back to Pascal Siakam. I love what I'm seeing. I think the defense. I don't think there's gonna be a ton of defense in this game. 8.7 just feels too cheap for what I've seen. So Pascal Siakam, I'm going right back to him. He was my play of the day on Monday. Going right back to it.
I like that call. We do have confirmation. Gary Trent, OG Anunoby ruled out. Still waiting on Dennis Schroeder. Over to you, Mangone, your Snyder Soldier play of the day.
Yeah, this is tough. I want to make sure. I think let's just go with it for the bit, right? We're gonna go with Al Horford. How's that sound? So I like Al Horford in this spot. We'll do it for the bit. I think he's a good play. If for some reason he's not, I'll let the members know too. If it somehow changes, and I just think he's that egregious of a play, but I think it's a good spot for him. So I'm gonna run some stuff. I'm excited to see if I can get him into my lineups. I think it's not the worst idea. So if Al Horford's getting minutes and he's starting, I'm interested.
All right, we'll go over to me for my play of the day. There's a lot of news. Actually, we've gotten most of it, but I got to say someone that I'm sure is going to be in my lineups. And that person, I had him on Monday. He was slightly disappointing, but today with Darius Garland out, Karis LeVert, I think he's gonna flex all over these Trailblazers. I think we're going to see big minutes. And I think him and Mitchell both going to have big games. I think they almost have to against Portland with the state of this Cleveland Cavaliers lineup. That'll do it. That's Karis LeVert, Al Horford, and Pascal Siakam as the plays of the day. A lot of news waiting to drop. We'll be reacting to it all in the Discord for the members. Up to Lock coming up. We do appreciate you guys all watching. I think we're off tomorrow on the free show. We'll be back on Friday, same time, same place. Until then, for Mangone, for AP, I'm DC, and we will check you next time.